Hello everyone. Today we're going to do LeetCode problem number 66, which is called +1. Take a look at the problem. It says you are given a large integer represented as an integer array digits, where each digits of I is the ith digit of the integer. The digits are ordered from most significant to least significant in left to right order. The large integer does not contain any leading zeros, which is nice. So we're going to increment the large integer by 1 and return the resulting array of digits. If we look at the examples, the first digits is 123. We're just going to return 124 by adding 1. In the second example, same thing. 4321, we're just going to return 4322. Just incrementing by 1. The third example, the digits array is just 0. We're just going to increment it to 1. The fourth example, this is a fun one. If the digits is equal to 9, then the output needs to be 10, or 1, 0. So how are we going to do this? Let's go back to PowerPoint. Okay. So we have three scenarios that we need to consider. We have the basic scenario, 1, 2, 3. This is the easiest. Then we have cases where we have a 9 in the equation, or the last digit is 9. And then we have the best case of all, where all the digits are equal to 9. So how do we do this? Well, the first thing we're going to do is loop backwards through the array. So we're going to start with the last number, and if it's less than 9, we're just going to increment it by 1. And then we can return that we're done. So that one is super easy. Now, if we have the second case where the last number is 9, we need to check for that to see if the last number, or that number, the current number is a 9, and we need to change it to a 0. And then we're just going to loop through again, decrementing I by 1, and then this will make the 2 a 3. So same logic, it's just we had to do another pass because the first or the last index was 9. Now, for this last array, if we use the same logic we've been using, we're going to get 0, 0, 0 because we convert all the 9s to zeros. So in this case, we're going to have to create a new int array, and we're going to increment its length by 1. And then we're just going to assign that first number equal to 1. So then 999 becomes 1000. And that is pretty much three scenarios we need to be concerned with. All right, so how do we code this? So we're going to start with the for statement, int I. Usually we do int I equals 0, but in this case we're going to do the digits length minus 1, which will start at the end. We subtract 1 because indexes are 0 based and we don't want to get an index out of range. We want to make sure I is greater than or equal to 0, and we want to decrement I by 1 each time. So the first thing we're going to do is check for that 9. So if it equals 9, we're just going to set it equal to 0. Else, we're just going to increment the number by 1. So in the case of 123, you come in here, if digits I equals 9, no, it's 3. So we just increment it by 1 to 4, and we just return it, and we're done. And this works for the 130 number, the 129 number we had, because we have it equals 9. So the first pass through, we assign the 9 to 0, and the second pass through, I is equal to 2, and so we're just going to increment it by 1 to 3 and then return it, so it ends up being 130. Okay, so now we've gone through all, if we go through the third scenario, we have all zeros. So in that case, we've got to handle that separately. So if we get down here, it's the only time we're going to get down here is when it's all the 9s. So we need to create a new result, a new int array called result, and assign it digits length plus 1. So we're going to increment whatever the array length is by 1. And then we're going to assign the first index in the array to 1, and then we'll return that result. So let's go through some problems in IntelliJ. Okay, so the first, I'm going to go through a couple of these. So the first one is 1, 2, 3. And that one is pretty straightforward. So it's digits of I equals 9, which it isn't. We're just going to increment 1, 2, 3 and return it. So that's fairly simple. You see the result is 1, 2, 4. Now we're going to do the case of 129. Debug that. So the first time through, the last digit is a 9. So we're going to convert that to 0. And then we're going to go decrement I by 1, so I equals 1. And it's not a 0. So you see currently we have 1, 2, and 0 in the digits array. We increment it to 130 and return the result, 130, which is what we expect. Now the last case of 9s. All right, so digits 9, yes, convert to 0. Digits of I, 9, yes, 0. All zeros. So if you look at the array, it's 0, 0, 0. Then we create a new array, and basically it just adds another 0. Increments it by 1 and adds a 0. So we make the first number a 1 and pass it back, and we have 1,000. And those are the 3 scenarios. So let's run it through LeetCode. I seem to always forget that part. All right, here I have my solution. I'm going to run it. And it passed. 124, expected answer. Submit that. Again, the fastest submission out there. And again, middle of the road with the megabytes. 37.6, which is less than 48.21% of all submissions. All right, so for the space and time complexity, we have one loop through the input list. And so as the input list increases, the time increases to go through that loop. So we have linear complexity. Now, the space complexity is also O of n. Specifically for the case of 999, where we need to increment that and add 1, so n plus 1. And so we get, again, linear complexity, O of n. And that is it. So thanks again for watching. And